Sup everyone, this is Karak from ACG and I come to you blistered, bloodied, and beaten as I bring to you the review for Banner Saga 2 for the PC, Xbox One, and PS4, the premier dreary dirge simulator of turn-based strategy games that exists in a fantasy world. Banner Saga 2 tells the continuing tale of heroes and anti-heroes locked in an ongoing struggle for survival as an ancient evil awakens and floods the land. So these guys do the one thing they seem to do best, which is run like hell and occasionally fight when their back is against the wall. The question is, does Banner Saga 2 really up the game and improve on some of the odd stylings of the original, or is it too comfortable in its own skin, relegated to a just good enough status that we all call sequelitis? Let's check it out and see. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Banner Saga 2, trading fame for food, the world's happiest band of campers, and a passion for loading screens. Graphics are up first. You know, the unique animation style that solidified Banner Saga in that cold fantasy appearance that gamers found so interesting, well, it continues here with additional race types, special attacks, and locations all melding in perfectly with the established environments of the past title. Now, it still gets a bit of that Don Bluth cartoon look from time to time in its presentation, and personally, that's something I love, but it's hit and miss for some people. Now, on the other hand, cutscenes continue to have the entertainment value of front row seats to two paintings and a damn staring contest, with absolutely minimal animations despite sometimes long minutes of reading characters' remarks and observations. Hey, I got an observation, why don't you move or something? Now, while a couple new races are introduced and their design is easily up to the standards of the game proper, it's the title's obvious motivation to put a bit more cinema into Banner Saga that exists and assists in elevating the story to a higher watermark than the past title by far. The story flows with an unseen elegance from poignant moment to pertinent choice, using carefully crafted scenes between those moments to solidify them as one decision that has multiple avenues of arrival to it, and I loved that. There was definitely more of a choose-your-own-adventure kind of situation going on here than even the previous title. It's really interesting to see that a graphical change and a presentation change within the graphics can actually adjust how the narrative actually flows. Now, the game continues to run incredibly well on the PC without a hitch. No word on the console versions and the hitches that sometimes showed up during the character transitions in the cutscenes there, but that does not exist here on the PC version, both on a normal hard drive and an SSD. It was totally fine. Now, Banner Saga continues to elicit a feeling of desolation within the world at the peak of its danger. The mixture of fantasy and Viking artistic reliances, combined with what I think is a higher color volume than the prior title, just makes Banner Saga 2 present even better than its predecessor, especially in those side views where you're traveling through that really interesting world. A game that truly knows where it is visually and knows how to add additional aspects without muting the whole affair is sort of a masterwork, and I think that people should expect that from this title. Lastly, the absolutely insane number of loading screens remain within the game, loading no matter where or what you do. Go to a tent, load. Leave it, load. Go to look at a character's loadout, load. Cutscene with one guy saying 2 sentences, load. It's like Skyrim, but you can't move and you're just surrounded by houses with doors. It's really unfortunate, and it might just be one of those bits from this game engine, but I absolutely despise the large number of loading screens, despite the fact that they're not super long, depending on what you're doing. Anyway, I would say excellent graphics, but still a couple issues here and there. Sound, music, and voice. And sound is up first. It's still poorly done. Weapons wick off enemies with all the presence of someone equipped with a damn hammer made of duct tape, toilet paper rolls, and a fancy wish. One big example, for instance, is the animation when some characters bang their shield, basically telling the world, hey, I'm here, let's dance the dance of death, baby. And I swear, it sounds like someone threw a handful of matchsticks at a tin can. Sound effects don't sound real, they lack variation, they lack tonal depth completely. If there's one real weakness in these games, and it existed in Banner Saga 1, it's absolutely their audio presentation during battles. Also, we still get the ambient sounds that continue to be at their absolute minimum. Now, we do get a couple rainstorms here and there, and it's just odd to see a game, though, with such a minimalistic presentation graphically at times, and not understanding how that can be shored up with a solid audio presence. Instead, we get the same lack of attention we see in many games, where it appears developers have forgotten that many gamers spend as much or more on audio equipment, headphones, and receivers than they do on their damn TVs. Honestly, I would say very poor sound. Music. Oh yeah, Austin Wintory returns with a passion. It's phenomenal work, with the impassioned use of instantly recognizable and discordant horn solos in battles, to his obvious, I would say unabashed love for percussion and woodwinds that are intermixed. This is phenomenal music everywhere, from the stompish beat while traveling to the fading out of everything but a simple single chord being played with really crunchy emotion to introduce a new character that might be hiding mysterious plans. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have more traditional music styles here. We do. The hero's journey tracks remain, but as with all things Banner Saga, it's like someone went out, got the most depressed orchestra in the world, and told them to play. Now, I love it, and the style fits perfectly with Banner Saga 2 and its reliance on reminding the gamer that shit just got real. That being said, some are gonna probably find this a bit brass section heavy, but for me, that's actually one of the reasons I adore it, because it sounds unique. Great music throughout. Voice. And it's just depressing. Maybe less is more, or more is less. It's hard to tell if there's more than Banner Saga 1, but it feels like there is maybe a little bit. It's still rare. Sometimes a one-sentence dirge about how horrible the situation is from a character leading a caravan, to maybe the occasional chant at the end of a battle that was hard fought. As with the original, though, it's excellent voice, but its absence in cutscenes is phenomenally felt. I cannot tell you just how much you miss it. I mean, it's so odd to go into cutscenes and see these characters you expect to really sing out and have those deep, meaningful moments that the narrative relies on, and instead you're cut short and there's this random sound when you select the new sentence you want to read. It's most likely a cost-cutting measure, but regardless, with the excellence of what's there in the occasional times you hear it, it's really surprising, and I want more. And of course that brings us to gameplay. Banner Saga continues that delightful tale that started Banner Saga 1. Basically, it's a story of continually fleeing heroes scattered across a dying world, all trying to figure out how to best save their own skins. Now, while doing so, you lead a hodgepodge band of survivors on a quest across the world, fighting off enemies, leveling up characters, watching others die, and buying food with good looks, and of course trying to stave off inter-party political turmoil to reach your destination. And everything, and most everyone in the game world, is trying their best to stop you from doing each one of those things. Now, one cool thing is Banner Saga 2, of course, takes into account your last save game, and you play right from the ending of Banner Saga 1. So that means some characters are going to be there, while others will have taken a series of dirt naps, and you aren't going to see them here in the sequel. Straight up, the gameplay just hasn't changed much. It continues to be the Oregon Trail, but with Manotars. Oh, and now horsemen have been added. A questionable melding of man and horse. These creatures work both for you and against you as you travel the world, and it's certainly best not to wonder how they came into being, but I can tell you this, you're going to want to use them on your teams regardless. New additions to this series also include new abilities for characters, the new races like I already mentioned, and some changes to the more questionable game mechanics that found their way into Banner Saga 1, and I'll cover those in a second. For the most part, you're really traveling, making choose your own adventure choices about which way to go, if you should save a village that's being attacked, or the best way to inform someone you hate that they should screw right off, and of course, upgrading your heroes. Now, upgrades are paid for with renown that you get for killing folk, and you can upgrade vital stats that increase things like hit points and armor, but of course you can unlock specific abilities that you can use, like going berserk and tearing into friend and foes alike, or more passive talents like the natural ability to possibly soak some damage. It's really unique because while upgrading, the system feels organically basic, but it's also strategically sound as well, and surprisingly robust, allowing for no two characters to be alike, even if you choose to buff the same main stat for each. Now, it works well and allows you to always have a somewhat flexible group of killers to field into battle, but that doesn't mean you won't feel a little samey from time to time. Now, armor is still not represented on screen graphically, with hilariously underdressed horsemen tap dancing across the screen with nothing worse than wood planks strapped across their nipples. That's somehow the equivalent of +5 plate mail. Also, the need to basically strip some enemies down Mace style by smashing their clothes off their bodies still exists. Though special skills mitigate that to a point, it's still a little bit ridiculous. And despite some new skills and races and characters, it's still like going into battle with the points leaders of fucking NASCAR, as you basically fight the same 5 dudes over and over and over again. And sure, there are the couple races I mentioned newly added, but due to the way the world is constructed narratively, Many spend more time at the end of a sharp point than getting to know you. Of course, that continues the tradition that I think Banner Saga has, which is rewarding combat far more than any kind of social interaction. Though I am happy to admit that the starve everyone in your caravan because no one seems to matter kind of tactic doesn't work here. You have fighters and clansmen. They do things like fight and forage for food, the latter of which was absolutely a godsend in particular moments. So that sort of cheating has gone away. Within battle, the devs did listen to some complaints, I think, and tried to change things up a bit. Unfortunately, I think much of it's going to still feel far more of a cosmetic thing, like destructible environments. Now, while interesting, they add very little to strategy because they basically can always be destroyed, at least I could find, in one hit, and that results in you running through the world like you have an unreasonable hatred for barrels, just smashing the shit out of everything around you until 1 or 2 turns later, everything looks exactly like Banner Saga 1, except now there are some smashed barrels everywhere. One excellent example of an addition, though, is a number of combat expectations that change up the battle, like holding a particular location or protecting someone while they're performing an action. While those sound horribly like the most sedentary escort missions you could possibly imagine, they turned out well, and they're also mimicked with a more flexible out-of-combat decisions you can make as well that can sort of do things like splitting up your forces and joining different groups, allowing for battles to be a bit more flexible in their makeup. Sadly, for every good, there just seems to be some issues here. For example, you're still buying food with your good looks, trading renown for both food and for upgrading your characters. In the end, it really should be separate systems, as one of those things is solidly not like the other, and it feels disconnected without needing to be. Another odd situation is that the push for more narrative choice prior to battles, and basically the desire to tell a specific story, ended up hurting it as it continued on. You see, at some point you're going to die in battle, and then you don't actually die and the story goes on, like the enemy basically pointed at you and laughed and said, "Stay down," and you sort of did until they were gone. This helps to drive the narrative forward, but it does so at, oddly enough, the expense of the actual narrative, which, if that's not a catch-22, I've never seen one. The game is all dark and gritty and final, except when it doesn't want to be, and then you're resurrected Jesus style to continue leading your people to the promised land, or technically a land a little less shit than the one you're at right now. Now, that may have happened in Banner Saga 1, and I just don't remember, but in the end, whatever. Now, Banner Saga 2 adds some well-needed strategic moisturizer to the dry battle scenarios of the first that I don't think anyone would argue about. But occasionally, it does get a bit sloppy with its application, and before you know it, crap's everywhere. Fun factor, I liked it a great deal more than Banner Saga 1. The battles were somewhat more flexible, the landscapes were more varied, the skills and characters added were more interesting, and yet the core that I originally liked from Banner Saga 1 was there. Still, sound is astonishingly poor though, and the lack of voice, I think, overly hurts it a bit. But you know what, its absence is better, I guess, than it occurring and being tone deaf like the sound is. As always, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or in the case of a PC, deep sale, and never touch it rating scale. This one's a buy. Many of my issues with Banner Saga 1 are completely fixed, though we still have to see if that horrid stuttering makes its way onto the console. What was already a pretty good game is now much better, and while not making an extraordinary leap, it hopped up a bit, and the results are a good sequel, for sure. So that's the end for me. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. Maybe check out the Reddit. Maybe check out Patreon. We're on Podbean as well. Peace out and enjoy your week.